The snow fell in heavy flakes, blanketing the quiet streets of Maplewood, Ohio, as Tom sat shivering on a bench outside the town's only diner. His thin jacket, patched at the elbows, did little to keep out the December chill. At 62, his weathered face told a story of Lashi's wife gone to cancer 3 years prior, his job at the factory lost to layoffs, and his home surrendered to a bank that didn't care. He clutched a styrofoam cup, long empty, staring at the neon "open" sign flickering in the diner's window. The world felt like it had turned its back on him, leaving him to fade into the cold. Have you ever felt so alone that even the warmth of a stranger's glance could feel like a lifeline? Tom's hands trembled, not just from the cold, but from the weight of wondering if anyone saw him anymore. The diner's bell jingled, and out stepped a man in a firefighter's jacket, his boots crunching the snow. Mike, 35, broad-shouldered, with eyes that carried the weight of too many emergency calls, paused when he saw Tom. Something in the older man's hunched shoulders, the way his fingers curled around that empty cup, tugged at Mike's heart. He didn't know Tom's story, but he knew pain when he saw it. Mike crossed the street, his breath visible in the frosty air, and crouched beside the bench. "Hey, friend," he said softly, his voice warm like a hearth fire. "It's too cold out here. Can I get you something warm to eat?" Tom's eyes flickered up, wary, searching for the catch. He'd heard promises before empty ones, but Mike's steady gaze held no judgment, only quiet concern. I don't have any money," Tom mumbled, his voice rough, unused. Mike smiled, small and genuine. "Didn't ask if you did. Come on, my treat." Inside the diner, the smell of coffee and bacon wrapped around them like a hug. Mike slid a menu across the table, his calloused hands brushing the worn plastic. "Order anything you want?" he said. Tom hesitated, then pointed to the cheapest item bowl of chicken noodle soup. Mike shook his head, chuckling. "Nah, you're getting the meatloaf special. Trust me, it's the best thing here. When was the last time someone saw your need and offered help without being asked?" The waitress brought steaming plates, and Tom's hand shook as he lifted the first spoonful, warmth spreading through him like a forgotten memory. Over the meal, Mike didn't pry, but he shared a story of his own fire he'd fought last Thanksgiving, how the family lost everything but held each other tight in the ashes. Tom listened, his guards softening. "Lost my Mary 3 years ago," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then the house. Now, I'm just here." Mike leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his eyes steady. "I'm sorry, Tom, that's a heavy load to carry." A pause, then Mike added, "You're not just here, though. You're here, with me, eating the best meatloaf in Maplewood." Tom's lips twitched, almost a smile, the first in months. They talked about Mary's love for county fairs, about Mike's daughter who drew him pictures for every shift. Mike's hand rested briefly on Tom's shoulder, a gesture so small, yet so heavy with care. Have you ever shared a moment with someone that felt like family, even for a fleeting second? What makes a stranger feel like home? The diner's clock ticked on, and the snow kept falling outside, but inside, something warmed between them, a bond stitched together by shared stories and a plate of meatloaf. Weeks passed, and Mike didn't forget Tom. He'd stop by the bench with a coffee, a blanket, or just a few minutes to talk. One frigid morning, Mike found Tom coughing, his face pale, his breath shallow. The firefighter's instincts kicked in. "You're coming with me," Mike said, his tone firm but kind. He drove Tom to the fire station, where the crew welcomed him like an old friend. They gave him a cot, a hot shower, and a pile of clean clothes from a donation bin. But it was more than that. Mike sat with Tom, helping him fill out forms for a local shelter program. "You're not alone in this," Mike said, his voice steady as he handed Tom a pen. Tom's eyes welled up, his hand shaking as he signed his name. It wasn't just the warmth of the station or the clean clothes, it was the realization that someone cared enough to fight for him. In that moment, Tom saw a spark of hope, like an ember catching in dry kindling. The crew rallied too, one firefighter slipping Tom a pair of gloves, another sharing a story of his own hard times. The station felt like a family, and Tom, for the first time in years, felt like he belonged somewhere. The climax wasn't loud or dramatic, it was quiet, profound, a shift in Tom's heart as he realized he wasn't invisible anymore. Spring came to Maplewood, the snow melting into green lawns and blooming dogwoods. Tom had a room at the shelter now, a job sweeping floors at a local hardware store, and a standing invitation to Sunday dinners at Mike's house. They'd sit on Mike's porch swing, Tom sipping lemonade, Mike's daughter giggling as she showed Tom her latest crayon masterpiece. They weren't just friends, they were brothers, bound not by blood but by a kindness that had changed everything. Tom would never forget that first bowl of soup, that first moment someone saw him. It wasn't just a meal, it was a lifeline, a reminder that even in the coldest moments, humanity could warm the soul. As the sun set over Maplewood, Tom looked at Mike and said, "You gave me more than a meal that night. You gave me a reason to keep going." Mike just smiled, clapping Tom's shoulder. "That's what we do, Tom. We lift each other up. What small act of kindness could you offer today to change someone's story? The world is full of Toms, waiting for a Mike to see them. Let's be that warmth, that hope, that family for someone in need." Has a small act of kindness ever changed your day or your life? Share your story in the comments below. It might inspire our next video. Subscribe to The Kind Story for weekly heartwarming stories. Hit the bell and check out our playlist of emotional videos. Disclaimer: this story is a fictional or dramatized narrative created for emotional inspiration and entertainment. While it reflects real human emotions, all characters, names, and events are fictional or modified for storytelling purposes. Some parts may use AI-generated voiceovers or scripts. This content fully complies with YouTube's community guidelines and monetization policies. Our goal is to inspire, not to mislead.